All right, folks, let's hop right to it. In the same folder, go ahead and create a new file called FNR, short for find and replace. All right, our goal for this example problem is just to implement a simple find and replace functionality. We're going to take 3 inputs from the user. The first input is going to be basically the original message that they're going to put in. The second input is going to be the token they want to replace. And then the last input is going to be what they want to replace it with. So you've taken input from a user before. Go ahead and do message is equal to input, enter a message. And then after that, we're going to just go ahead and take all of the inputs from the user at the same time. And so the next thing we're going to ask for is token to replace. And then we're going to set that equal to input, replace colon, I think is a simple enough message. And then, you know what, actually, let's change this to just replace. I don't like the other variable name is too long. And then the last one is going to be new. The new is going to be what we replace it with, and just set that equal to input with. And now we get to the actual problem. We want to basically check if the item that they specify for replace actually exists inside the message, and then we want to replace it if it does. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create an array based off of the message that they input. Remember from the example a couple videos ago, you can use the split function. I'm going to say tokens is equal to message.split. And now we've got an array or a list representation of all the individual words inside the message that they input. And now with this new list, it's easier to check for matches. We can iterate through all of the tokens inside the list. So for token in tokens, if the item that they want to replace is equal to the current token, then we can replace it. But wait a minute. In order to actually change a value inside a list, we have to actually access it directly by its index, right? Well, the way we've done this for loop doesn't let us do that, so let's go up and change it. I'm going to say for index comma token in, remember, enumerate tokens, which returns a tuple. And now if I get the token, if it's equal to replace, then I can set this value, this particular index in the list equal to the new item. So I'm going to go ahead and do tokens of index is equal to new. And that completes the find and replace functionality, but now how are we going to print this new message to the user? Because right now it's kind of in list format, right? Well, here's good news for you. Just like Python has a convenient function to split a string into different elements in a list, you also have a function called join, which joins all of the different elements in the list into one string. And so go ahead and type what I'm typing. I'm going to do print parentheses, and then open quote, space, close quote. That's a string with a space in it. And then I'm going to do dot join, and then I'm going to feed that join function the list. That join function basically tells Python, hey, take all of the elements inside this tokens list and then join them together with this space. Pretty cool, huh? And that, I believe, wraps up our basic functionality. So I'm going to write my changes. I'm going to flip over to another terminal and then execute my code. Python3 fnr.py, enter a message. I don't know. Hello, my name is Michael. I'm going to replace Michael with Jacob. Why not? And now you get, hello, my name is Jacob. Okay, sweet. Now, here's a use case that we didn't cover. What happens if we try to replace a word that doesn't exist in the original message? Well, if I run this program again, I'm going to enter a message, hello, my name is Jacob, and then I'm going to try to replace Michael with, it doesn't matter, blah. And then you still get, hello, my name is Jacob. Well, I mean, that's technically true. It didn't replace anything, right? But I don't like this functionality. It's not very intuitive. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip back over to the code, and then we're going to account for the scenario where someone tries to replace something that's not in the message. I want to print out something different. Now, there are multiple different ways that you can go about this, but let me show you a really cool feature of Python, okay? You can actually do a direct check and see if an element is inside a list. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if replace not in tokens. Isn't that freaking cool? It's so easy. It's so easy to do this kind of check. And now inside this if statement, if we get in here, that means they tried to replace a word that wasn't in the original message. I'm just going to print a message telling them that, hey, you tried to replace something that wasn't in your original message. And there we go. Now, the rest of this stuff is going to happen if they are replacing an actual word in their message. So I'm going to say else, colon, and then I'm going to indent all of this code below into the else block. And that should complete this. So I'm going to go ahead and write my changes, flip back to the terminal here, execute my code again. I'm going to say, hello, my name is Jacob. Test the same scenario, Michael, replace it with blah, Michael, not in original message. There you go. It's simple. It's not the most robust thing in the world, but hey, we got the point across. We implemented the core logic that we wanted to implement here. I'm going to try to do this again. Now, if I do Python 3 fnr.py, if I enter a message, hello, 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 and then I just replace hello with goodbye, you can see here that, hey, every instance of hello gets replaced with goodbye because of the way that we implemented this. So it's not extra work on our part. Cool. Pretty sweet. To wrap up this example problem, let's go ahead and move some of this functionality into a function. The reason we didn't start off with that is because I wanted to walk you through an example of figuring out which code can be put into a function. If you look at our code here, you can see that there are kind of two distinct sections. The first is taking input from a user and defining our variables. But then the second section, you've got an atomic unit of work here, which is basically finding a word or a token inside a message and then replacing it with something else. All of this logic here, it doesn't matter how the message came to be. It doesn't matter how we got the token. All it cares is that these variables exist. That means we can isolate this code into a function, and then as long as we feed it the right information or variables, it'll work every time. And so this right here is your cue for putting stuff inside a function. It's an isolatable unit of work that accomplishes a specific task. I'm going to go above tokens here, and I'm just going to define my function def find and replace. And then I'm going to take in 3 parameters. I'm going to take in the message, I'm going to take in what I want to replace, and then I'm going to take in what I want to replace it with. There you go. And now I'm going to indent all of this stuff below and put it inside the scope of the function. And then after I take in the input from the user, I'm going to call this function with those variables that I have defined. But if I run this program as is, it's going to fail. Why? Well, let me go ahead and show you here. I'm going to go ahead and execute the program, input a bunch of stuff, whatever. And then as you can see, our program crashes with a name error, find and replace not defined. Well, as I taught you before, functions are like aliases for blocks of code, right? The problem here is that we tried to use an alias before we defined it. And so generally speaking, it's always recommended that functions come first in the file and they're defined before you run any other code. And so that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to really quickly cut and paste my function definition above the rest of the code here. And then if you rerun it again, now it works. All right, that completes the second example problem here. In the next video, I'm going to be going over the new challenge format with you. And then after that, we're going to set you loose to do a couple challenges.